Bhagavad Gita. I'm sorry I won't be leading any kirtans tonight. The doctors told me to rest my voice for 2 weeks. It's only been 5 days. So I thought if I get glass, it'd be a good compromise for the kirtan. I have an infection, but it's not contagious. I looked on the website and saw that someone else was supposed to speak tonight, the Bhagavad Gita, 11:32. He's not here.
He's informed.
Huh?
He's informed. He knows.
He knows.
Yeah.
He knows he's not here.
Yeah. He knows that you're going to come.
Okay.
We have sent a newsletter.
Huh?
We sent a newsletter and message to
Okay. Well, I hope he doesn't mind, but I'll speak on the same verse.
Please.
Okay. I don't know if he's prepared or not. This is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, verse 32. Well-known verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Others will read along? Yes? No? What's the procedure?
Yeah.
You want to chant the verse?
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan.
Yeah, I know it. I know what it's like. It's not the light here. It's not really conducive for reading books.
I think it worse. Kalasmilaka Sayakit Prabridho.
Karosmiloka Shayakritranito.
Lokan Samakartumiha Prabhitaha.
Lokan Samakritumikavagavita.
Teti Tvam Na Bhavishanti Sarve.
Jitepi Tvam Na Bhavashanti Sarve.
Devastita Pratramite Amiteshu Yodaha.
Devastita Pratyanishu Yodaha.
Someone else like to chant?
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Kalosmilokakshaya kripa vrito.
Kalosmiloka Shayakritranito.
Lokan samahartum iha pavritaha.
Lokan Samahartumimagavitaha.
Rite pitvam na bhavishanti sarve.
Jitepi Tvam Na Bhavashanti Sarve.
Devastita pacham yodaha.
Devasthita pratyanteshu yodaha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Kalosmi lokakshaya krita prabuddho.
Kalosmi lokakshaya krita prabuddho.
Lokan samahartam krita pravritta.
Lokan samahartam krita pravritta.
Te apitvam na bhavishanti sarve.
Videtitvam bhavishanti sarve.
Te avasthita pratyanteshu yodha.
Devasthita pratyanteshu yodaha.
Ladies,
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Kalosmi lokakshaya krita prabuddho.
Kalosmi lokakshaya krita prabuddho.
Lokan samahartam krita pravritta.
Lokan
samahartam krita pravritta.
Videtitvam na bhavishanti sarve.
Videtitvam na bhavishanti sarve.
Devasthita pratyanteshu yodaha.
Devasthita pratyanteshu yodaha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
The personality of Godhead said,
The personality of Godhead said,
Kala,
Kala,
time,
time,
Asmi,
Asmi,
I am,
I am,
Loka,
Loka,
of the world,
of the world,
Shayakrit,
Shayakrit,
the destroyer,
the destroyer,
Prabuddha,
Pravriddha,
great,
great,
Lokan,
Lokan,
all people,
all people,
Samahartum,
Samahartum,
in destroyer,
in destroying,
Iha,
Iha,
in this world,
in this world,
Pravritta,
Pravritta,
engaged,
engaged,
Rite, without,
without,
except for,
except for,
Api,
Api, even,
From,
from,
you,
you,
Na,
never,
never, Bhavishanti,
Bhavishanti,
will be, Sarve, all,
Yea,
who, Avastita, situated, Prati Anikeshu, on the opposite side, Yodha, the soldiers.
translation. The Supreme Personality of God has said, Time, I am, the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people, with the exception of you, the Pandavas. All the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. Purport. Although Arjuna knew that Krishna was his friend and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was puzzled by the various forms exhibited by Krishna. Therefore, he asked further about the actual mission of this devastating force. It is written in the Vedas that the Supreme Truth destroys everything, even the Brahmins, as stated in the Katha Upanishad 1.2.25. Yasya brahmachak shatram cha ube bhavata odana mitra yasya pasej chanam ka ita vedayatra sa. Eventually, all the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and everyone else are devoured like a meal by the Supreme. This form of the Supreme Lord is the all-devouring giant, and here Krishna presents himself in that form of all-devouring kind. Except for a few Pandavas, everyone who was present on that battlefield will be devoured by him. Arjuna was not in favor of the fight. He thought it was better not to fight, and there would be no frustration. In reply, the Lord is saying that even if he did not fight, every one of them would be destroyed, for that was his plan. If Arjuna stopped fighting, they would die in another way. Death could not be checked, even if he did not fight. In fact, they were already dead. Time is destruction, and all manifestations are to be vanquished by the desire of the Supreme Lord. That is the law of nature. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana-salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ukam Karoti Vashana Pungam Mandayate Garim Yad Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurave Nama Om Vishnu Devaya Krishna Kristaya Rupale Shrimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Namaha Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Charine Niranjana Shunyavadi Bhasta Charis Parane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. This is a well-known verse, oftentimes quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna is describing his manifestation as Kalarupa, in form of time. And he explains here, in answer to Arjuna's question. Arjuna's question in the previous verse was, I want to know about you, for I do not know what your mission is. And Prabhupada said here, specifically, that he's asking further about the actual mission of this devastating force. What's your mission? Why have you manifested this form, this universal form, and especially since Arjuna witnessed in the manifestation of that form how Krishna was devouring everybody. He saw everything existing in the cosmic manifestation. Then he saw all the soldiers who were assembled on the battlefield in that manifestation. Then he saw how all the soldiers in the battlefield were being devoured. Krishna uses the word I'm devouring, all devouring time. And he saw personally how all the soldiers were being devoured within the mouth of this universal form. And everything else was being destroyed. And Arjuna had asked the question, therefore, what is your mission by showing this force to me? Of course, Arjuna had the eyes to see, but others could not see. But he wanted Arjuna to understand a very important point, and that was that if you don't take part in this battle, everyone's going to die anyways. Prabhupada speaks about that in several places, many places actually. When I looked at this verse, I was thinking that there was so much evidence, both in Prabhupada's purports and verses of the Bhagavatam and other Shastras, about the nature of this time. Because one of the most important features to understand about Kala Rupa, about time, is its destructive feature. Time, everything is destroyed within time. Everything is created within time, everything is contained within time, and ultimately everything is destroyed within time. And if it weren't for the existence of time, then we would be able to experience true eternality. But as
explained, and I'll read a verse also in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, how when Krishna creates, before everything else is created, first he creates time. Because otherwise, how can anything be created if there was no time for it to begin in? In fact, because there's a distinction between this entire material cosmic manifestation, which is temporary, and the spiritual world, which has no beginning and which has no end. Krishna explains elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita that the supreme abode, my supreme abode, is unmanifest and it's infallible and the supreme destination. When one goes there, he doesn't have to come back. That is my supreme abode. We should understand by that statement that what Krishna is saying, that the supreme abode is unmanifest. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means never was there a time when it was created. Never was there a time when it manifested, which is, of course, one of Krishna's inconceivable qualities and potencies, that not only is the supreme abode unmanifest, but he's also Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadam, Ananta. He also has a body which has no beginning, which is not subject to decay, which is the beginning of everything else. It has no end. So just as Krishna, whose form is eternal, is beginningless and endless, and is eternally manifest as an ever-fresh youth, his abode also has the same qualities. So when Krishna says the supreme abode is unmanifest and infallible, he's saying that never was there a time when it was manifest. Which, whenever we discuss this point, we have to confess, and for anybody who's a little bit thoughtful on the topic, they'll have to also confess that to the limited sense perception and to the limited mind, that is an inconceivable concept of something and someone who has no beginning. Why? Because our existence in the conditioned world, under the influence of Kala Rupa, which is that everything we experience has a beginning and an end. And when we try to conceive of something with no beginning, the mind can go and go and go and go, but you can't stop, because it's beginningless. And how far can you go from to get to beginningless? It's the same distance you go to get to endless. It's inconceivable. Therefore, when speaking about Krishna and speaking about his transcendental abode and speaking about his qualities, one of the characteristics that we have to accept, which is important when we accept the conclusive statements of Shastra, the conclusive statements of self-realized souls, the conclusive statement of the Lord himself, who is beyond time. He's beyond time. Krishna says, Yachaiva Satvika Rajastamasas, Yachaiva Satvika Bhava Rajastamasas Chaye. He says, these three modes of material nature which were created by me, they were created by me, but I'm above it. I'm not under the influence of this Raja. Raja is how creation takes place. Lord Brahma is the predominating deity of Raja, the mode of passion. So Raja is the mode of passion, maintenance, and ignorance, the mode of destruction. It takes place under the influence of this time factor because, as we explained before,
first thing Krishna creates before the three modes is time. And then when time is created by him, then creation, maintenance, and destruction can take place within that realm of the eternal time factor. We call it the eternal time factor because time begins, is created. I'm going to read a quote also by Baladev Vijayabhushan, a very nice quote. It's a sutra where he talks about time. In fact, it might be good to read it now. But I don't want to lose the point, which is an important point, so I won't read it immediately. The important point that I want to make before going on to this nature of time is that Krishna is revealing this to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in order to convince Arjuna that best you do your duty as the Kshatriya and take part in this battle. And Srila Prabhupada explains in one purport, he says that the Lord diminished the duration of life of the opposite party by his merciful glance. It is said that all the said that all of the fighters who assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained salvation by personally seeing the Lord at the time of death. Therefore, his diminishing the duration of life of Arjuna's enemy does not mean that he was partial to the cause of Arjuna. Factually, he was merciful to the opposite party because they would have not attained salvation by dying at home in the ordinary course of life. Here was a chance to see the Lord at the time of death, and thus attain salvation from material life. In other words, this was Arjuna's chance to allow the Lord to bestow his mercy upon all those who had assembled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And if we go into the whole history of the war, why the war had to take place, Arjuna's responsibility in taking part in the war was to protect religious principles, was to protect Yudhishthira Maharaj, to see that he was installed as emperor of the world, to protect the devotees. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Paritanaya Saranam Vinashaya Chuduskritam Dharma Samstapranataya Sambhavam Yuge Yuge. He comes to deliver the devotees, annihilate the miscreants, and re-establish religious principles. So Krishna's purpose in coming was to protect the devotees of the Lord from the Kauravas who were trying to usurp the kingdom from the Pandavas, who were supposed to have their rightful claim of kingdom, and who by very nature, by dint of their integrity and by dint of their devotion, their devotional qualities, would lead society in a very righteous and devotional way. But the Kauravas wanted to usurp that right. And on that basis, although they were the rightful heirs, Pandavas were the rightful heir to the throne, Krishna, and there were other events also which led to the battlefield, such as the disrobing of Draupadi. As we know, the Kauravas were destined to be punished for their offenses committed to Draupadi, and they attempted to disrobe her in the presence of the Kauravas and Pandavas. We know that the Lord, to protect Draupadi, he manifested unlimited cloth so that her chastity would not be revealed. And he protected her, but because of that offense to Draupadi, there was another reason for treating her in the way that she did, that the Kauravas had to be punished. We can give a whole list, but we don't want to lose about the concept of time because we're also under the influence of time. the time is going to destroy this glass in 28 minutes. And there's a lot to talk about when we're talking about time. So the main point, at least when Arjuna asked the question, what is the mission behind this forest? Its mission was to show Arjuna, look, everyone here is going to be destroyed by me anyways, because time is destroying everything. And this is another manifestation, another of my manifestations. I am manifesting myself as all-devouring time. Prabhupada himself used to give the example that many people do not want to utilize their life to develop devotional qualities and accept the existence of God, and not only accept the existence of God, but to understand one's relationship with the Supreme. So because throughout their life they failed to offer suitable dandavats, or prostrating themselves before the Lord in a submissive way, then the Lord, in the form of Kala Rupa, or eternal time, he forces them to offer their dandavats in a different way, when they have to fall at the time of death and accept that he's taking away their life in the form of time. And Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita that one of the characteristics of this world is Dukkaliyam Shashvatam. It's temporary and it's full of suffering. So Prabhupada would give this example that they don't want to voluntarily accept the submissive relationship with the Lord in this way, so therefore they're forced to accept at the time of death. Therefore, Kalosmi, which is his time, I am, and I'm devouring anyone. So in the same way, he's telling Arjuna, if you take part in this battle, then not only will you be executing your duty, which is to give protection to religious principles, to protect society, to protect the claim of Pandavas, and but at the same time, you will benefit also the Kauravas, all those on the opposing side, because just see, when you saw, when you looked at my mouth, you saw me devouring, they're already killed by time. Now, at least if you take part in this battle, because all living entities who leave their body in the presence of the Lord, he achieves salvation. And this is what Bhishma Dev was describing in his prayer to the Lord, that all those killed in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they achieved salvation. They were actually able to attain a type of liberation which is called, they achieved the same body, the same bodily features as the Lord, simply by dying in the presence of the Lord. No. Because the Lord is all good, and he's always acting, even when he punishes, it's always for the good of the individual. The Lord never does anything maliciously. There's no malicious intent in him. That whatever he does ultimately for the good of all living beings, and he can do it all simultaneously. He doesn't have to say, okay, I'll take care of them first, and then, he can accomplish so many things simultaneously, because his brain is so big, and because he's super soul, he's situated in the hearts of all living beings simultaneously, and he doesn't even have to think. Well, all we said, his brain is so big, he's everything. Everything happens by his multifarious energies. All he has to do is think, desire, and his energies act very perfectly according to his will to accomplish his tasks in this world. So, in his form of super soul, he can accomplish so many things simultaneously. Because as super soul, he is bearing witness, and he's giving sanction to the independent freedom of all living entities to choose whether to serve God or to reject. So therefore he's telling Arjuna, okay, take part and they'll get salvation. That was an answer to Arjuna's question, is what is the mission behind this force? All right. So now I want to discuss something about time. Because as we explained that in the spiritual world, or in the transcendental abode, time is conspicuous by its absence, in that it has no destructive feature. There's time, but the destructive feature of time only exists in this world. Prabhupada says, in this world, his birth, his growth, his duration, production of byproducts, dwindle and vanishing. That all takes place under the influence of time. The body takes birth, grows, produces byproducts, stays for some time, produces byproducts, dwindles, and then vanishes. Becomes either dust, becomes ashes, becomes stool. But it goes through this transformation, and this is, again, under the time factor. So, and there is a quote, it's called Kala Tattva Nirupana, or talks about time. This is a quote from one of our acharyas, Baladev Vijayabhushan. He says, now we will discuss time. Time is a specific material element that is independent of the three modes of nature. It consists of past, present, and future, and it has simultaneity, delay, speed, and other aspects. It is the cause of the material universe's creation and destruction. It is like a turning wheel, a wheel that has spokes, beginning with second and ending with eons. It is described in the following words of the Shruti Shastra. Lord Vishnu is the controller of time. He knows everything. He has all transcendental qualities. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, O inaugurator of the material energy, this wonderful creation works under the control of powerful time, which is divided into seconds, minutes, hours, and years. This element of time, which extends for many millions of years, is but another form of Lord Vishnu. For your pastimes, you act as the controller of time, but you are the reservoir of all good fortune. Let me offer my full surrender unto your Lordship. Another quote, in the Smriti Shastra it is said the material universe is like a wheel, time is like a wheel. Time is powerful and eternal. In the Shruti Shastra it is said before the material universe was manifested, time existed. Again, this is simply reiteration of the same point I've already made, that before the creation can take place, there has to be time. O gentle one, before the material universe was created, time existed. Time acts everywhere. In the Shruti Shastra it is said there is no place in the material world where time is not present. Time controls the material world. Still, time itself is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed by the passage beginning Gya Kala Kala in the Shruti Shastra and also by Srimad Bhagavatam. Both passages quoted above. Time has no power in the spiritual world. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated in that transcendental state of Labdo Pasanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods, who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures. There's a lot there. I'll just simply briefly summarize. Most of it is already simply evidence. As I said, I was going to present evidence of things already spoken, which were that time goes on continuously, and then in the whole process of creation is described in Bhagavad Gita, Bhuta Bhuta Praliyate, which describes when the Supreme Lord creates unlimited universes, then he enters into each universe and creates within each universe The first created being of that universe is Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma being the first created being in that universe, then he's the secondary creator and creates progeny and creates all the elements and gives all the he's the supreme facilitator. He gives all facility for living entities who have to take birth according to their previous destinations determined by their previous activities. He gives all the facilities for them to be impregnated into the material universe. And therefore the universe takes its birth, it stays for a duration of time, which is a lifetime with Lord Brahma, which is, by earthly calculations, 312 trillion years. Figure it out. A long time. But for Brahma, it's one lifetime. For us, it's 312 trillion years. For Lord Brahma, it's 100 years. Right? Just like we know that when Lord Brahma stole the calves, the cowherd boys from Krishna, and the Brahma Vimoha and the Leela, he took them away for 1 second. But it was 1 year before everybody talked about death of Aghasura, who happened to be killed just 1 moment prior to the time the cowherd boys and the cows were stolen by Lord Brahma. And the reason is because for the time of the cowherd, for the time of the heavenly planets, Brahma took them away for 1 moment. One moment in the heavenly planets was 1 year on the earthly planet. So 1 year passed. Anyways, such is the nature of time. It has its influence based upon a particular location where it is influencing. In the heavenly planets, duration of life is a lot longer by earthly calculations. People live in the heavenly planets for hundreds and thousands of years. But that's earthly calculations. But as Krishna explains, although they may stay for a long time, when they exhaust the results of their pious activities in the heavenly planets, then they come back down and take their birth again in the earthly planet and take birth in the human form of life. And there are many stories about living beings who went off to other places, heavenly planets, and then after being away for a short time, they came back and the whole earth was overgrown. And everything that was present was gone. And because although they only gone for a short time in the heavenly kingdoms, in the earthly kingdom, it was a very long time, millions of years passed. And when they came back, they were shocked to see that everything that they had just left for a short period of time was all gone. So Brahma's life is 312 trillion years. And he has a planet, Brahmaloka. And at the time of death, when Lord Brahma leaves, and he either goes to different destinations depending upon which Lord Brahma he is. Some Lord Brahmas go back to the spiritual world. So some Lord Brahmas, our Brahma, at least in this universe, he's a pure Vaishnava, and we can understand it. And when he's finished engaged in his service of creation in this universe, and Lord Brahma, he's the head of our Sampradaya, and certainly he will go back to the spiritual world. But there are unlimited universes, and each universe has its own Brahma. And some Brahmas don't go back. Some living entities go back, and they enter into the body of Brahma, and wherever Brahma goes, they go with Brahma into the next time creation takes place. Because Brahma has a lifetime, and then after his period of lifetime, he has the same period of time when it's called avyakta. And avyakta is unmanifest, where the whole entire cosmic creation is unmanifest for the same period of time, and where everything is held in suspended animation, and where the energy of the Lord is not manifest. It's called avyakta. It's not manifest, but it's still there, but it's in its unmanifest state until it's time for the next creation. And when the next creation comes, then the Lord, in his form of Mahavishnu, he breathes out unlimited universes. And from each of these universes that come out from his transcendental body of Mahavishnu, then he further expands himself as Garbhodaksha. Vishnu, he enters into each universe, and within each universe, he sprouts from his lotus navel, the plant, the lotus flower, and from the lotus flower, Lord Brahma takes his birth. Lord Brahma is known as Aja. He is the unborn, because he takes his birth from a lotus flower. And then he begins his lifetime again. So this period of creation, unmanifestation, and creation again goes on eternally. And if anybody asks, well, when did it all start? Sorry. Don't go there. Don't go there. If you go there, if you being under the influence of time, if you try to go with that question of when did, okay, you said it started, it was created, it was unmanifest, created, and unmanifest, but when? When? Yeah. Compelling word. When? Why do we throw that word out? Why is it so compelling? Because we cannot conceive of beginnings in the same way as we cannot conceive of endings. Of course, when we transcend this color rupa, eternal time, then what happens? Then, as we just explained in this verse, those persons who are beyond the influence of this eternal time are no longer under the influence of time, and therefore, being no longer under the influence of time, they become eternal associates of the Lord. And becoming eternal associates of the Lord means that they no longer have to experience birth, death, disease, and old age. They no longer have to experience any destructive features of time. But they experience time in a different way. In a different way. There's a very detailed explanation of how the devotees experience the influence of times in the transcendental realm, which is called Labdo Prashanti. In that transcendental state of Labdo Prashanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time which controls even the celestial demigods, who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures. And what to speak of the demigods themselves? Nor is there the mode of material goodness, nor passion, nor ignorance, nor even the false ego, nor the material causal ocean, nor the material nature. Anyways, this simply talks about love to Prasanti, and then Prabhupada, I was going to read part of the purport, but part of the purport simply goes on to explain how none of these things in material creation are affected by this time which was created by the Lord. So then how is time manifest in the transcendental realm? Well, there's so many various ways. One of the evidence I was going to give is a story from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a story about, I don't know, any of you are familiar in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Once Narada Muni, he was in Dwarka, and he was visiting all the different palaces of the Lord. And each palace of the Lord that he went to, the Lord was doing something different. But not only was the Lord doing something different, he was doing something at a different time of the day. And all these different affairs that were going on at different times of the day were going on simultaneously. Now, go figure. In other words, and I'm going to read I said I was going to use some Shastric evidence. I was going to read some of the explanations that are given by Shukadeva Goswami from this particular pastime. This is in Dwarka. You can read a little bit also from from Golok to Vrindavan also, we also know that in the spiritual world, time also has no destructive influence, but yet early in the morning, in very early morning hours, the sun rises, and the sun immediately, and the sky becomes a bright red, and certain pastimes take place when the rising of the sun, and then the Lord, he goes to his home, and he takes his bath, and as he gets up early in the morning after taking his bath, he goes out, as the sun is rising in the morning, he goes out to the cow sheds, and he milks the cows with all his cowherd boyfriends. And then after milking the cows with all his cowherd boyfriends, it's time for breakfast, and he goes to take breakfast with his cowherd boyfriends. Some of his intimate friends like Madhu Mangal come with him, and Balaram is there with him, and Nanda and Yasoda are there, and Rohini, she's making all the different arrangements for Krishna to have breakfast. But Mother Yasoda, she's very, very meticulous, because she's very concerned about the welfare of her son, while it's breakfast time. She wants to make sure that Krishna gets the best food possible, so therefore she arranges for Radharani to come, because she's been given a blessing by Durvasa Muni that anyone who eats her food will be deathless, will become immortal. So Mother Yasoda is thinking, I have to have Radharani come and cook for my son Krishna, because, and so therefore she brings Radharani to come, and all her associates are coming in the morning, and they're cooking, making all these wonderful preparations, and then they're making arrangements to serving them out, personally serving her. Rohini Mata is making arrangements for the different gopis to serve it out. And then after taking breakfast with all his cowherd friends, then Krishna, along with his friends, he goes out to the pasturing grounds as the sun is getting a little higher in the sky, and he's going to the pasturing grounds with his cowherd boyfriends. He's getting ready to play with his friends. And of course, Mother Yasoda and all the cowherd men and cowherd women are standing by, watching as Krishna is leaving, entering into the pasturing grounds, because they cannot tolerate even a moment's separation from Krishna, because they're thinking, Krishna's leaving us, it's time for him to go. And they're feeling great, intense separation. Krishna's going into the pasturing ground, and Mother Yasoda, she doesn't even want Krishna to leave. And she starts following Krishna out to the gate, and then she starts making different excuses to straighten his clothes, and then she starts telling all Krishna's friends, look, I see that Krishna's getting scratches on his body. You should be careful when you go out and play with him, because he's falling into the thorny bushes when he's out playing with the cows and calves, and all of you. So please, you get on one side, you get on another side, and protect him. And then after going there, she starts to turn back. And then when she turns back and goes home, she thinks, oh no, my son's leaving, I can't let him go. And she goes out and she finds another excuse. And she starts adjusting his clothes to make sure he's dressed properly, to make sure everything is nice. And then she turns back. And finally Krishna says to Mother Yasoda, he says, Mata, please go home. All my friends, they're waiting for me. We're going to go out to play. Until you go home, they won't come with. So Mother Yasoda is thinking that, yes, it's time for Krishna to go. The sun is up in the sky, and then of course Krishna has his pastimes during the day, and then in his evening pastimes, when the sun is starting to set in the sky. Time is there, but time has no destructive force. There's no destructive feature. These pastimes are going on eternally. They're ever fresh. Not only that, but the devotees who are experiencing separation from the Lord, their experience of separation from the Lord, in Sanskrit it's called purvarag. Purvarag means that they feel some separation. They think that each time they see Krishna, it's like the first time they're seeing him. They forget that they were with him before. It's ever fresh. Time doesn't destroy anything in the spiritual world. This is the nature of the spiritual world. So this is, of course, we're speaking a little bit about the influence of the time factor, or not the influence, but how the time in the spiritual world simply enhances the pastimes of the Lord, so the devotees can enjoy their particular relationship with the Lord. And in so many different ways it's described, even all the 6 seasons that are manifest in Vrindavan, the symptoms of the 6 seasons, they're all manifested simultaneously. The different flowers are budding. Some flowers that bud at certain times of the year, they're budding there at that particular time. These things are all going on simultaneously, and they're all simply meant to enhance and to serve the eternal pastimes of the Lord in the transcendental realm of Goloka Vrindavan. This is time, of course, in the spiritual world. I was going to read an example of how when Narada Muni was going into all the palaces, in each of the palaces, Narada was witnessing something that was going on, but at a different time of the day. And but time is taken. I knew it was going to happen. I'm sorry. It was really wonderful, the whole transcendental narration of Narada Muni's visitation to the different palaces of Krishna in Dwarka, and how these different pastimes were going on that he was personally witnessing. Although some morning activities, one place he went, Krishna was sitting doing his morning meditation. Another place he went, he was doing his evening ablutions. But he was just going all of them, and it was all the same time by calculations, but different times of the day. So this is also as an example, and it's given by Baladev Vijayabhushan and by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, how time in the spiritual world simply serves to enhance the Lord's pastimes, but it has no destructive feature. No destructive feature, because Krishna says, when one goes there, tad dhamma paramamama. He says, when one goes there, he never has to come back. Krishna says, janma kama chamedavyam even yoviti tattvata tattva deham vanarjana naitim amiti sojana. One who understands the transcendental nature of my birth, Krishna's birth, is not due to the influence of the time factor. When Krishna comes, he comes by his own will. He's not under the influence of time. He says that anyone who understands the transcendental nature of my birth, my appearance, and my activities in this world, he'll never have to take his birth again and will achieve my eternal goal. Arjuna. So, this is a little bit about time. And the reason why I thought it was important to discuss how time has no destructive features in the spiritual world is because there's a very important verse Srila Prabhupada would oftentimes quote from the 2nd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Aya Harati Vai Pungsam Udyan Astatuyadasa, which says that both by rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life for everyone, except for one who utilizes the time for discussing the pastimes of the all-good Supreme Personality of God. Therefore, these are described as deathless narrations. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Swami ki jai.